The My Time at Portia developers are taking a completely different route in their next game, while also developing the next My Time game. They're also developing a game called The God Slayer. When I say different, I mean very different. They're calling this an open world steampunk action role playing game, and it looks awesome. For anybody that wanted a more mature take on Avatar The Last Airbender, it seems like Pathia Games are giving it a go. The combat system is based on elemental magic, so earth, metal, fire, water, and wood in this situation. The main conflict is a conflict between humans and celestials, and the celestials are these powerful beings that created the world. And now that the humans have started to channel the elemental power that is called chi, they are not pleased, so they start destroying entire kingdoms in something that is called the Godfall. The protagonist is on a journey not just to defeat those celestials that have fallen, but to also kill something called the Supreme Celestial. They've given quite a few details on how the game will play out. Apparently it's going to last around 40 hours for an average playthrough. It'll be something like 7 chapters, each with its own boss. And one of the more interesting aspects, as outlined by WCCF Tech in their article, is that the game has a lot of in-depth systems that allow you to approach things in different ways, since this is an open-world game. An example that they gave is that you can bribe guards, find diversions using your elemental abilities, or find hidden paths. And this game is clearly aiming more for the audience of games like God of War, with a bit of that spectacle fighter aspect thrown in. This game is a lot more impressive in that way than the games that they've done in the past. Feels like a pretty ambitious game, so this is something that I will always say, approach that with caution in terms of expectations. These developers are taking a shot at something new to them, so it may not be perfect, but it'll have some flaws. I will always applaud them, regardless, having the guts to brave that uncertainty and put out something that's in a different genre than they're known for. Pathia Games has a pretty good track record so far as well, with My Time at Portia and My Time at Sandrock, but clearly this is a whole different type of game with its own share of difficulties in terms of execution. I'm also very interested in the setting of the game. We've had a few games with a sort of steampunk aesthetic, but honestly, not that many. This also has a very Eastern cultural vibe to it, with the wuxia style cinematic martial arts, which is very cool, something that I've always loved. The Celestials themselves are a really interesting idea, something that has been explored before in different kinds of ways. You know, these otherworldly and almost godlike beings coming into conflict with humans. So we'll see exactly how they decide to approach that. In the Steam description, it says that the game mostly takes place in a single city, the capital of Zhou, and that there are multiple different factions, so you'll be cultivating allies, trading in favors. There seems to be at least some sort of faction system within the game. As to whether that will play out in some systematic way with mechanics like reputation, or whether that'll just play out mostly in story elements, isn't clear. They haven't really said anything about that. That is something that I will be looking to see what they have to say about later. And the scale of some of the fights seems to be as ridiculous as you could possibly hope for, which is what is making me think of this more in terms of a spectacle fighter. There are these massive mechs with clawed hands, and you find yourself having to avoid being shot by celestials from a steampunk zeppelin flying through the air, dodging behind buildings. I'm honestly a little bit surprised that this wasn't made by one of Sony's studios with the way that it looks. But again, I'm trying not to set my expectations way too high, and the fact that my brain is going there is probably a good sign. It definitely feels like the kind of game that would do very well, and that basically goes directly into my wish list because I've always loved big open world RPGs. The thing that I'm always interested to see for an open world game is how they're going to do exploration. Having an open world set completely within a large city is pretty ambitious. I understand why some people are comparing it to Assassin's Creed, though for me, the open world city and running across the tops of buildings is where that comparison ends. It doesn't really seem much like an Assassin's Creed game aside from that. But There are often two main routes that are taken when it comes to open world exploration. You can either do icon chasing checklists, or you push more towards the immersive side of the spectrum. That's what I call the Ubisoft versus From Software theories of exploration. I'll always personally be more interested in the From Software style of doing things, and one of the best examples of this more immersive style is actually not by From Software, it's Red Dead Redemption 2. The entire cycle of never knowing what's going to happen as you're going through the world. I think a city you spend time in would be the perfect opportunity to have those sorts of systems. There are so many different random encounters, random events that could happen there, and that would go perfect with what they're talking about, finding allies and bribing officials, making all sorts of choices. Obviously, since the game has just been announced, it isn't that clear exactly what sort of exploration route they will take. We'll just have to wait and see. It was a long trailer, but it was mostly showing off things like cinematics and structured and scripted events. But for me, when you say you're an open world game, the meat is in the things outside of those more structured and scripted situations. Needless to say, very excited to see where this all goes and to hear more about the game over time. This is one I wouldn't expect to see for a couple years. We're unlikely to get a release in 2026, possibly 2027, but we'll have to see about that one. They haven't posted a release date for it at all, so that's about it. For more videos about RPGs of all kinds, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.